So we now turn to our first panel discussion of the day, Current State of the Mongolian Economy and FDI. The session will be moderated by Mr. Zolbayar Inkbatar, founder and CEO of Capital Market Mongolia and the driving force behind today's forum, bringing together Mongolia's investment community and international stakeholders for this event. Joining him on stage are three distinguished leaders: Mr. Mark Gabel, CEO of MSM Group, a seasoned executive with over 20 years of international leadership experience. Established in 1998, MSM Group operates across three major sectors: automotive, industrial, and beverage. The group continues to solidify its position as a leading player in Mongolia's dynamic market, attracting increasing attention from global investors. Last year, the group welcomed a strategic investment from Gibson and Jensen Group, signaling strong confidence in MSM's growth trajectory and Mongolia's expanding investment landscape. Mr. Matthieu Blan, country representative of IFC, within 25 years of experience in private sector investment and infrastructure finance, he has overseen IFC's support for key initiatives across Mongolia's energy, infrastructure, and financial sectors, helping unlock private capital for sustainable growth. These efforts coincide with a broader increase in FDI in Mongolia, reflecting growing global confidence in the country's market potential, reform-driven policies, and natural resource wealth. Mr. Randeep Grewal, Chairman and CEO at Greka Group, a global executive whose leadership spans aviation, energy, and real estate. Through the Grewal family office, Greka Group is making a strategic entry into Mongolia's energy sector. Please welcome our panelists to the stage.
So I still remember it like yesterday. It was 24 years ago where I took a flight to Ulaanbaatar, and then I went to the Boro gold mine. And while they were mining gold, I spent a bit of time with the drillers, the geologists, and I was still, I had a bit more hair back then. I was still young, and eventually from that drill rig, they brought out the samples. And then I saw this shimmery gold. And 24 years ago, I kind of thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is a small population, but has so much mineral wealth. This could be Dubai of Asia. And over the last 24 years, our company has grown from a few employees to now almost 1,000. And what has always motivated me has been seeing our employees grow with the company. So because our company has been growing, we have been able to pay higher salaries. So with more profit and higher salaries, obviously the family life and the country gets better. So has been a very, very exciting and very fulfilling time for me.
Thanks. So how about Matthieu? So I know you've been head of EBRD in Mongolia and head of GGI and now the head of IFC in Mongolia. So you know the investment environment in Mongolia better than everyone here, I think.
Yes. So Mongolia is a dangerous country. You come for 1 month and you stay for 25 years.
25? Right.
It happens quite often, by the way. First time I was head of hub, we created a hub for SMEs in Istanbul, and because EBRD doesn't have Asian countries, it was Central Asia plus Mongolia. And I came, remember, September 2011. And those were the good years in terms of booming, and because one thing that you forgot to mention, when you arrived, the GDP per capita was less than $1,000 a year, so you needed a vision. Me, it was easier because it was a booming time. OT was already discovered, etc. So actually, I went to Mongolia through the SME angle, which is not the easiest. It was dairy production, and small companies, but very dynamic, very active. And there is an entrepreneurship in people that you feel at every level, in the Gare district, in the center, in big companies. So that was very exciting time. And I could see the difference actually with Central Asian countries, because I came from Central Asian countries like Tajikistan. And yes, you didn't have this dynamism. So in Mongolia, it was quite surprising. And one thing that you said was democracy, of course. EBRD had chapter 1, article 1. So democracy was very interesting. So to have a democratic country with a huge potential was something that EBRD was interested in. So yes, then I became EBRD country representative. We did a lot of projects, from very small to very large. Actually, at the time, OT was the largest ever EBRD transaction. And then I came back through another door, which was the green angle, GGGI. I didn't stay long because of IFC. And IFC is very interesting as well. Different business model than EBRD, more larger project. But then we can discuss about our pipeline and portfolio. So yes, Mongolia is really through the development angle, I can say, that I know. But in Mongolia, you meet actually friends and extremely dynamic entrepreneur, and that has not changed.
Thank you. So, Mr. Grewal, so we met a few days ago, and it was interesting. He came to Mongolia almost 3 years ago with Mr. Robert Friedland, and now he leads a family office, and now he's entered Mongolia from, I think, last year. So please tell us about your story with Mongolia.
Yeah, I mean, I forget whether it was 91 or 92 when I first went to Mongolia with Robert, and candidly said, it's not a place for us. And we spent the last 30 years in China developing coal-bed methane, which is extraction of gas from coal. Created the technology, developed the technology. Today, 40% of China's domestic gas comes from the coal beds that we pioneered way back in the early 90s. Went back to Mongolia for the first time since then, about a year and a half ago, as we're exiting China, and said, let's look at Mongolia one more time. It's a shock. It's a pleasant surprise. I think Matthieu said it correctly. It's a dangerous place because you fall in love very quickly. And you have to be careful. When you fall in love, you make mistakes. So that's kind of where we are. We are in love, making mistakes, but not really. I think where we are today, from a family office standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. It's the right size. Mongolia's economy is a microeconomy from a global scale perspective, growing, but still micro. So the question really is, how do you make that fit? And from a family office standpoint, we have to deploy a certain amount of capital for it to make sense. And where that fit is ideal for us. Lots of coal reserves. People are obviously talking about renewables and different sources of energy, but we have a niche, which is gas. When I started in China, there wasn't a single gas pipeline. And today, it's a very well-developed gas economy. My vision towards Mongolia is identical. Yes, renewables have an important place, but it's going to be complementary, in my view, to coal. I don't think coal is a bad thing. I don't know why people sometimes make a comment, coal is bad. It's not bad. All economies have coal as a baseline. You just got to use cleaner technologies from coal. In our case, we extract gas from coal and use that gas to convert into power. So our mission going forward in Mongolia is our first line investment is going to be about $350 million US. And we are, let's say, delayed because of the changes taking place in Mongolia. But I can say in a very simplistic way, with the thick skin that we've got, the changes that we've seen in the last year has actually increased our confidence in Mongolia because it's a working democracy. You can see it actually works. So I think where we're gridlocked for the time being, we do think investment agreements are important. We think without investment agreements, you get a bit lost. So I think that's where we're going to focus our energy going forward, is get that IA done. Clearly, so far, the uranium mine recently got an IA done. OT has theirs. We certainly wish to have one. And assuming we get that, we'll launch in 2026 on what we know to be a 25, 30-year cycle. And we're very confident that Mongolians will develop a domestic energy from gas identical to the Chinese. We don't see any difference there whatsoever. It will simply happen. It's a function of time. Success is across the border. The coals are the same. The process will be the same. It will just be more efficient. So we don't have to look for stuff. The coal's already there. So we're pretty excited. I think that we're going to start that cycle and expand that in different parts of Mongolia.
All right, good to hear that. So now let's talk business. So Mark, so last year the biggest story when we came here was on Bloomberg's Trafigura news. The second one is the MSM Group acquired by the Jensen Group, right? So how is the deal, and then what happened since that deal? Like, so it's been like a year right now, right?
Yeah, so Jepsen & Jessen is a global family enterprise in automotive, industrial, and beverage. And actually, Jepsen & Jessen and MSM have been working together for over 10 years. So we started over 10 years ago to represent their overhead crane business. We had a couple up in Dachan, and since that cooperation, obviously Jepsen & Jessen could follow the growth and the development of MSM in Mongolia. And a bit over 1 year ago, then the decision was made for Jepsen & Jessen to become a majority shareholder. So we set up a holding company here in Singapore that owns the business in Mongolia now. And I have to say, it's been a real win-win for everyone involved. So Jepsen & Jessen is very happy with their investment into MSM because the company continues to deliver profitable growth. It has been a win for the founders, which are still minority shareholders, but taking some profit from all their time and investment in Mongolia. But it also has been a win-win for our employees. And I say that because a lot of younger Mongolians like the opportunity to grow and develop within the country, but sometimes they are also intrigued to work for some time overseas. And being now part of a global family business, my talent can work in other parts and still stay within the group. And in the past also, I would say the back office functions like HR and finance, everything was discussed within our own management team, but now being part of a global group, my HR and finance and IT team, they have counterparts in Singapore and can share best practice globally. So I would say it has been a really, really positive investment, and it was actually in the non-mining sector the biggest foreign direct investment in 2024.
Yeah, a quick follow-up question. So you are the biggest supplier to many sectors in Mongolia, mining, non-mining. So you know the real economy. So how's your business doing so far this year in Mongolia? How is the real economy in Mongolia?
So generally, I would say the business environment across the globe is not very good. There is way too much inventory on cars as well as on beverages. And as a result of tariffs and slow demand, we do see also a lot of parallel products coming into the Mongolian market. So for me, always an indicator how the overall economy does is how much Jack Daniels we sell, because a bottle is around $30. So the average person can afford that, and our Jack Daniels sales has been flat. So I would say that 9% inflation that we have currently is resulting for the ordinary population, some pain and less spending. However, I would say as long as China continues to buy Mongolian commodities, then obviously the overall economy in Mongolia will do okay, and I don't see this changing anytime soon. So over the past 25 years, we have been doing business in automotive, industrial and beverage. There has been, of course, some ups, some downs, but as you shared earlier, that graph of strong growth, I think it's similar to us, and important is to have that long-term perspective. We, as a company, set a 5-year strategic growth plan, and we're following through on this, and that 5-year plan means we plan to double our business over the next 5 years, and we are on track on that.
All right, so thank you. So Matthieu, so you took your position at IFC early this year in January, I think. So since that time, IFC has been like very active in Mongolian market. I think this month or last month you just signed an agreement with the Golden Bank for like 160 million. So just a little, tell us about your deals you have done this year.
Yes. So for the portfolio, portfolio is about $1 billion, which is, you know, a good ratio portfolio on GDP. I think it's one of the highest actually in IFC. So of course you have 1/3 of Oyu Tolgoi. It's a big one. Then the other third is obviously banking sector, a little bit more. Banks are doing quite well. And then we try to get in manufacturing and services, including agriculture. Last year we had $400 million investment, ranging from Han Bank to Metagro. I think one of the nicest deals we had is actually the smallest one, $7 million equity investment in N Global, based in Singapore, fintech. So I think that the Mon Logistics story is what you want to achieve, is close to what they want to achieve as well. Being based here, I mean, having a very strong Mongolian footprint, then having the holding company here and working then at a regional level from there. So that's the purpose of the company. This year we'll do a bit more, maybe $500 million, $600 million investment, mostly financial institutions. It's not because we love banks, it's because the banks, Mongolian banks are quite good, and you can disseminate a lot of actually deploy a lot of capital on very specific product. Last year was mostly about climate financing. This year is more about SME. We strongly believe in Mongolian SMEs, and that's why we are using the firepower of Mongolian banks, be it the network of Han Bank, or I would say the corporate strengths of Colomb. We actually started to work in infrastructure, and that's new, because IFC cannot do sovereign lending. So what does that mean? We need private or sub-sovereign lending in infrastructure, and that's starting. Last year we financed the battery storage, which was quite critical to stabilize, I will say, the electricity in particular in winter time. This year we look at actually logistic through railway, and of course renewable energy. Renewable energy is a big one. Two sides. One is advisory. We have a PPP advisory. So by the way, if you are interested, the request for bids will be in Q1 26. 100 megawatt wind in Mondagovi. It's a very good test to the new renewable energy law, which is a good law. The wind is fantastic. It's actually red. It's not orange. And then we have off-grid investment for wind as well. Basically, it's the wind turbine which will go to generate electricity for Oyu Tolgoi. Manufacturing and services. Last year we invested in, actually we lent to Metagro, which is good, which is important, not only because you have a rising premium meat market in Mongolia, but also, of course, export. Mongolia has a lot of export potential in agriculture. And I think the whole trick is to have deeper processing in Mongolia. You spoke about Kashmir. 90% of Kashmir used to be exported raw to China. So actually, when the big brand buy yarns from China, it's actually mostly Mongolian Kashmir. Not Inner Mongolia only, Mongolian Kashmir. So there is a ban now. We need to process deeper Kashmir in Mongolia for job creation, for added value creation, for many, many reasons. Also maybe for quality and for the image of Mongolian Kashmir. It's quite remarkable that Mongolian Kashmir has not been able to create actually this image of quality. I mean, it's very high quality Kashmir, but because it's blended somewhere in northern China, there is not this brand, Mongolian brand. So we try to address that, of course, through the SFA, which is Sustainable Fiber Alliance, which enable you to sell to the big brands, LVMH, etc. So that's pretty it. And I saw some future potential client here. Of course, dairy. Dairy is quite a good thing to produce. Not so much for export, actually for local market. So we try to diversify. 10 years ago, the big idea was diversification from mining. Yes, it's happening. It's really happening. But, it's not diversification for the sake of diversification. I think Mongolian mining remains the backbone of the economy. The whole point is to have this trickling down effect so that it then goes into the real economy, even if we know that manufacturing will not be mass production. But I think that in Mongolia, it's all about quality of people, quality of the product, sometimes niche market. So that's what we try to address.
Okay, so follow-up question. So our third quarter GDP growth came out at 5.9% this week. So I'm kind of surprised because it's more than what I expected. Because seeing the coal price and everything, so what do you think about this GDP growth rate? I think it's better than your expectation, or
it's
also why is that like?
No, it's expected. I think it's more of a quality shift with coal price having decreased quite sharply, and we see the impact on budget. So that's one of the big things. It's slightly compensated by copper. But, for example, you look at agriculture. Agriculture is doing very well this year as opposed to last year. So I think we have a little bit of really quality shift in the GDP, which is good. And still 6% roughly GDP growth in the current environment, it's not bad at all. Not bad at all. So we are very confident that will continue, that will actually materialize. And to have Mongolia not so much pro-cyclical as it used to be is a good thing. Maybe it's better to have 6% every year than sometimes 15 and sometimes 2. So we believe that will continue. Mongolia will do well, and we try to address these SMEs, and because they struggle a bit to access capital. They have access to capital thanks to the banks, but it's relatively expensive. So our end game is to have relatively affordable true Greek lending. That's the end game. And you have to work on many things. So we try to raise MNT using our AAA to have a lower MNT rate. We try to help the banks to diversify as well, and maybe to IPO, so that they can access themselves cheaper long-term financing. But in general, yes, actually inflation is a little bit of a worry, more than the GDP growth. Otherwise, the fundamentals are here. And just last point on the recent upgrade in the rating. I think it's very significant for 2 reasons. One, we are back to the 2012 upgrade when Mongolia raised Jetchi's bond, which was a big thing at the time. So symbolically, it's like back to business. which is very good. And secondly, as you said, it's in a kind of political uncertainty. Some say turmoil, whatever it means. And it means, yes, we don't really care. The fundamentals are here. Live the democracy. I mean, live your democracy. It's normal. It's a natural change. But the fundamentals are here, and we upgrade thanks to the fundamental, despite the political uncertainty. So I think it's extremely significant.
Sorry, can I just say something on the inflation part? So, as you hear at the beginning of this conference, Mongolia doesn't manufacture a lot. A lot is imported and exported. So on the import side, obviously, because we are one of the largest automotive companies, many American vehicles that we sell that are made in America are not 100% made in America. 40% of the components come from Canada, from Mexico. So prices of American goods have gone up, and obviously we somehow need to pass that on to the customers. So that's also where this 9% inflation comes from. It's a effect of the global tariff issue that we have. But I'm sure eventually Mr. Trump wants to stay in office a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if inflation in America picks up. Eventually, maybe some tariffs will be also reversed. It's just the way we are.
All right. So, Mr. Grewal, so your investment focus in Mongolia is energy sector. So can you elaborate more on why is that? What do you see the future in Mongolia's energy sector, like in maybe next 5 years? Because this year in London and New York, we focused on our energy sector, and Deputy Prime Minister Dorchan joined us, and Mongolian energy companies joined us, and I've seen a huge interest from them, global investors in Mongolian renewable and other energy sources.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let me start by saying the US was the world's largest importer for energy for a very long time. Today it's the world's largest exporter of energy. So you got to put that in perspective and recognize that if an economy that big can flip in a matter of 3 years, so can Mongolia. Mongolia actually has, in my view, significant potential in its resources it already has, both underground and, as Matthieu was focused on, solar and wind. All of that, if you listen to Deputy Prime Minister Dorchan, he is very correctly ambitious to become an exporter. There's no reason you can't. There's a large consumer to the south that clearly, and I helped develop in China the West East pipeline infrastructure. I actually know the exact locations where pipelines are envisioned to come in from resources in Mongolia into China. So I think my view is that the one key step Mongolia must take, and this is what we're trying to promote in Ulaanbaatar, it has to be a market economy, cannot be a controlled economy. That will bring capital in. So for example, specifically PPAs, power purchase agreements, must be open to the market. The market is intelligent, market will trade. Those PPAs, market will structure those PPAs. If the government attempts to control too much, you will choke it. There is no national grid that's going to go to every little pocket. Resources will get developed across the country. And captive off-grid power is the answer. So if you have captive off-grid power producers, like us, among others, you might have renewables, and I strongly believe there'll be an abundance of coal bed methane generated off-grid captive power stations across Mongolia that can provide point-to-point service. But to provide point-to-point service, you have to allow the market to get engaged. Back off from control is really what we're pushing for. So that's where I see an abundance of opportunity. There were some large numbers put up here on wind and solar and what it can do. But I think China already has a very large renewable energy base that it understands incredibly well. I can name multiple plants that are built but not being used. So as we think about that balance, one might zoom out a little bit and look at the potential exporter of energy, Mongolia, into China and say, how will that balance out? And I think it'll be across the board. Big opportunity. It happens. And I don't think it's an overly ambitious plan for Mongolia to go from a net importer of energy to a net exporter of energy. Very doable, but it's got to be market driven. If it's not, it'll get choked.
All right. So beyond energy, like what do you see other investment opportunities in Mongolia, other than energy?
Yeah, I think from a family office standpoint, we're being, as Italians, we're being pushed into a logistics play, so I can share with that, flying nonstop from Ulaanbaatar to Italy. So that's an agreement that we supported getting signed. The Mongolian government and the Italian government has signed that agreement. We agree with all the logistics growth trajectories that are being shown. A lot of the car manufacturers are in Bavaria, as you know, a lot of consumers come in from there. So that's another place that we're looking at being the investor to actually provide that non-stop flight. I think the Kashmir trade, which is something we understand very well as Italians, the Italian companies, I mean, I was just with the Laura Piana CEO in Ulaanbaatar last week. She's done that job for more than 25 years. And her number one choke point is logistics. And you know, the very idea that you can get a non-stop out of Ulaanbaatar to, in our case, the flight will go to Bergamo, just outside of Milan. That's where the Kashmir production line is in Italy. So it opens up a Kashmir trade that will, I agree with Matthieu, the branding, people, I mean, we wear suits of Xenia, Laura Piana, and don't realize the Kashmir is coming from Mongolia. It's just the branding, there's a bit of a gap. So I think the flight would facilitate that gap. I mean, it would really help it. So that's the other place we're looking at is our aviation side investments.
All right. So my last question goes to all you guys. So here we have the existing investors here, and also the first-time investors that is considering Mongolia. So what would be your advice to first-time investors who wants to put capital to Mongolia? It's just a quick question. So starting from Mark.
So you can expect in Mongolia, I would say, medium risk, but your investment should give you double-digit return. And double-digit is not something unrealistic. Here in Southeast Asia, the business environment is extremely competitive. So you usually fight against hundreds of competitors. Mongolia is still a place where if you have a leading market position or you have a leading service or product and you do it professional and you look well after your customers, you can be rewarded with double-digit return. Investing not just in a business, I think investing in people is very, very important. So I would say the resources available are limited, so retaining talent and attracting talent is one of the big challenges, and you can tackle that by investing in upgrading skills. And then again, if you upgrade skills, then you can demand a higher rate for your services. So that would be my advice. Invest in a business that is very profitable, but don't forget to invest also in the people.
All right, Matthieu.
So the success stories we have seen, I think it's important to have a local partner in Mongolia. Okay, everywhere, but maybe more in Mongolia. It's a small market, everybody knows everyone. So you know easily people you can work with and people you cannot really work with. There are not so many, by the way. So good local partner who knows the local dimension, which is quite important. Because in a very fluid political environment, a minister today can be a nobody tomorrow, and vice versa. So sometimes you just meet someone who actually is a decision maker later on. So it's quite important to spend some time, having a little bit of mapping of who is involved in what. Then I think IFIs are still relevant. not only for long-term financing, more than cheaper financing, it's long-term financing, but it's also because they actually can have this dialogue with a moving government or ministries, even if ministries are not so important in certain area. But for example, energy they are, transport they are, logistics they are. So you need this kind of contact who can direct you to actually the person who can help you just sometimes to understand the law. And be prepared to have good lawyers because the laws are changing fast, usually for the better. You know, there is a big discussion on the FDI law today. And the discussion at AmSham is, do we need amendments or a brand new law? You know, this kind of relatively sophisticated discussion, you know. So it's moving quickly. In the energy sector, it has been dramatically changed. Again, for the better, we believe that competitive auction is good, but of course you have the legacy PPAs and all these issues. So you have sometimes, you know, different legal ways to look at some project. So that's for the big one. Now, in terms of investment, in terms of tax, etc., it's pretty nice. Okay, I come from France, so my benchmark is very low. But I have to say that the doing business, and I regret that IFC is not doing the doing business list anymore, because recently, and that I totally agree, recently the environment actually has improved quite nicely. Last point, choose your bank, local bank. They are powerful, they know the market, they know also the supplier. So you have 6 banks, 6 large banks and 6 smaller banks. Maybe it's too much, but they are quite specialized in their business. If you go to secondary cities, you know, you have banks with more branches. If you just trade or do business in Ulaanbaatar, you have corporate banks, which are very, very strong. So that will be my advice. Choose your local partner, choose your local commercial bank, and do not hesitate to work with IFI, because not only IFC, you have EBRD, ADB, you have also DFC, you have bilateral, FMO, DHG. They are all present in Mongolia, and they can provide beyond the long-term financing some good contact point, and also sometimes good advice as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grewal.
I think if you take a look at how do you invest into Mongolia, I can just share our journey. You would look at it on the equity side or look at it on the debt side. I think equity is where we're going in with, but it's a challenge because the equity bet is a long-term bet. And that equity bet is not a trade, it's not a flip. The market is just way too small. Matthieu correctly said, everybody knows everyone, so you do an equity deal, and by the time you've had lunch, by dinner time, everyone's talking about it. That's how fast it is. But you can't trade it. So it's a one-way trip. You go in, and you're in equity a long time. But to get good exposure, what we've been very pleased with is how well, and the rating therefore becomes very important, but how well bonds have done. The bond market towards Mongolia is lucrative. We've been watching the bond market now for about 2 years. They get placed. There's some good banks that have good stomach for them. They're very efficient. They know what they're doing. So for those of you looking for an investment towards Mongolia, maybe the bond market would be a good place to go. Whether those bonds are being placed by the city, being placed by the banks. In our case, we will come out with a corporate bond ourselves. We'll do that here in Singapore, which is why we're here. We see Singapore as a good balanced place to place these bonds. But the bond market is a lucrative bond market to go into because there you can get your exposure, and the bonds themselves aren't that liquid, to be frank. But Singapore market itself is not a great liquid market. But at least it provides you exposure. You can go in, get yourself a decent rate. I don't know about high double digits, but some sort of double digits would work. But you're able to go in, get that exposure, and come out. But we haven't seen bonds do bad in Mongolia. They do quite well. And the most recent upgrade I think to Mongolia's credit, is really creating more liquidity that's available for the bonds. So we don't see Mongolia as a great equity ticket unless you're a family office that can kind of say, this is a 20, 30-year bet, then it's great. But otherwise, bond exposure would be a great way to go and be able to recognize you've got some good exposure into Mongolia.
All right, thank you. So to sum it up, so we have smart people, Mongolians from here, as you said, people here, Mongolians, so you can meet them during the coffee break and lunch. Also, we have the Mongolian banks here, and best lawyers here from Mongolia, Melville banks, Ham Bank, Golden Bank, Bogd Bank, and then also we have the around more than 20 Mongolian companies here who can be your local partner. So yeah, so also we have the bond issuers, MMC, MIC, Golden Bank, so who are doing great on here in Singapore on bond market. So so now, thank you for joining us, and thank you for everything you are doing for Mongolia. Okay, thank you guys.